Really like to just do a nice road picture with me and a couple chicks and just like I don't know, can everybody on it? How about all of us just like in a road movie, like get a Winnebago and let's go?
Hi, and welcome to Close Up with the Hollywood Reporter, Drama Actresses. I'm your host, Lacey Rose, and I am here with Anya Taylor-Joy of The Queen's Gambit, Gillian Anderson of The Crown, Elizabeth Olsen of Wandavision, MJ Rodriguez of Pose, Sarah Paulson of Ratched, and Cynthia Erivo of Arthea. Thank you all for being here. All right, we're going to start with an icebreaker of sorts. I am hoping you can all finish this sentence. On set, I'm the one who's most likely to
be hiding in a corner.
Bossing everyone around.
Probably being goofy and silly and doing cartwheels.
Trying to make the crew laugh.
Pacing whilst moving my hands like this, trying to figure out what it is that I'm doing, essentially.
I probably have the healthy snacks.
I like that. All right, collectively in your careers, I'm going to get this right, but you have played thick, stiff, evil, drunk, damaged, sexy, hilarious, grief-ridden, and yes, even two-headed. For each of you, when was the last time you were sort of genuinely nervous to act out what you were seeing on the page?
Yesterday?
Yeah.
3 weeks ago.
Seriously, what are the things that do make you nervous as an actress? And maybe it is also the most rewarding things.
Lines.
Yeah.
I think that doing Arthea really sort of like tested everything. When you have a template there, like a real one that existed and everyone loved, you kind of want to make sure that whatever you sing sounds good and however you are feels as authentic as possible. So that was definitely scary. The music of this piece was really, that was a hill to climb.
You're also navigating, trying to inhabit this woman and not impersonate her, which I imagine, Gillian, it's something you've also done. Sarah, obviously you've played real life people before. What is the sort of trick to that?
Well, somebody said to me before I started doing Thatcher was, the showrunner said to me that he wanted me to keep an element of myself in Margaret Thatcher, and that there was something that would benefit both the interpretation of her and also my ownership of her somehow, but also the final product of her would benefit from having being grounded in me rather than other or me reaching for something that was completely not of me. And I think that helped quite a lot to relax into it, take the pressure off a bit. Definitely.
What about for you, Cynthia?
I guess for me, I just had, there's an understanding that I'm not this woman, that I'm, I guess in a way, a representation of who she was. And my aim was to try and get the essence of her, of who she was, to try and find the nuances in how she would speak to people, how she would be with people, as opposed to be the exact copy of her. Because in my body and my mind and my soul, I already know that's an impossibility because she already existed. There was a blueprint that was made for her specifically, and now she's not here. It is also not here. And I can only take from what she already created and who she was and paste some of that on me that exists in my existence, and give that to anyone watching. So I guess for me, it's just about finding the things that make her tick that I can attach to myself to then show everyone else.
These are all characters you have inhabited for sort of long stretches of time, and you often have to go to dark places with them, to heavy places with them. what happens when a director yells cut? I mean, are these characters that you're able to sort of leave on set, or do they come home with you? Do they live with you between, cut and action?
I would say, for me, I'll speak for myself. I would say like it's easy to just cut off, especially when dealing with something just so in depth when it comes to stories that haven't had a chance to be in the forefront, and also just the image trauma that comes with playing characters that are actually a piece of realistic life. So I just try my best, for me specifically, to just like separate myself from Blanca as much as possible. When I go home, Michaela J is going home, and I bring Blanca to the set, and it just clicks on there. It's easier that way. And also you don't have to bring so much of the baggage of what happened in a period of time like 1987 with you, because it can weigh on you. And I'm sure a lot of you ladies can attest to that for sure.
What is there something you do when you get home to ensure that Blanca isn't with you? I mean, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it? What do you do?
Well, I definitely take 20 minutes out of my time to really center myself and like just wash off all of the process and the work that I had to put into her, making sure that she was this realistic person. And also the many women that I've emulated through this character. I try my best to take 20 minutes to just like release myself from that. And sometimes I do it before I even get home, so that I don't even have to bring that to my family. I have a whole family that I'm with. And sometimes that can wash off on the people that you surround yourself around. And I'm a happy-go-lucky girl. I love being happy and giddy. So if I brought that home, I know it could just rupture everything. So I just make sure I center myself as much as I can.
I wish I had as much control over that. I mean, I think it depends, at least for me, it's very much character to character. There are some characters that you can very easily snap in and out of. And then there are other ones that, I mean, in the case of Beth and the Queen's Gambit, I had worked back to back on 2 projects with 1 day off in between. So by the time I got to actually filming the show, I was exhausted and there was no energy to create a barrier. And that was potentially the toughest thing about the show, because it was a wonderful experience as an actor to be able to not have to reach for any emotion, but then you also have to go through the psychological, like, I don't know, warfare of figuring out, why do I feel so awful this morning? Like, what is happening? And then you go, oh, it's not my feelings. I just have to sit in them all day. And I have to be aware enough to go, you are not depressed. The character is depressed. And at some point that will leave you. But I do think baths, like an actual bath, like being able to have like the visual representation of washing yourself clean of something. A bath every single night is the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I remember having Nicole Kidman on this roundtable a few years ago when she was doing Big Little Lies, and there were some really tough scenes for her character. And I mean, she was saying how she, one night came home and threw a rock through a glass door. And again, is that her? No, is it the character sort of coming through her? Have any of you sort of experienced anything like that, where this person's still inhabiting you offset?
I just think that we put so much time and energy into patience on set. I think there's a lot of patience that's required, and I do think that takes away from the patience we may have when we come home. And that's
very well put.
And that's really what I mean, because we're just tired also. I mean, regardless of what exactly emotionally the day it requires of you, it's just, you're just tired. And so you just try and be patient and professional and kind. And then I think when you go home, that's when your fuse is just, much smaller.
Date us. We're fabulous. We're really
Cynthia, I've heard you say, with Harriet, and I suspect was no lighter with Arthea, that you, I think you used the word sort of mini breakdown. But
I did, yeah. I had a mini breakdown, a real ugly cry realization. I was like in a hotel or something, and so on Harriet, I had no time. to actually rest or do anything after playing her, and went straight to see, I think, my mother in London. And in the, like, I don't know what happened, but I just, you know, like the visual representation of shattering glass, that was what was happening to me. I just had no, I was like, oh my God, this is finished. I don't know what's going on. I feel really like all of the stuff that I had to dig through to play her, all the heartbreaking stuff, sort of didn't go when I finished. And it took some time to just dissipate. And, you know, the same with Aretha. Unfortunately, the pandemic hit when we were in the middle of shooting it, so I couldn't completely get rid of her during the 6 months hiatus, and I had to go right back into playing her after that. So it's like you're pulling this person with you the entire time, so you don't lose them when you get to set again. So it felt like she was just stuck for ages. And it's little things like mannerisms that you don't necessarily have that stick with you. You know, that lilt in her voice where she's quite quiet when she's speaking to someone because she needs them to lean in. Like, that's not me, but I was stuck with that for a little bit. And I was recording an album at the same time. So there was no space again between one and the other. So like, it took me a while before I could listen to an Aretha song again. I really had to, like, I can't listen to this music anymore for a second. I just need to not hear it. And I love her. I love her voice. But when you spend every day listening to it and you spend every day studying it, it's a strange sort of resistance to want to be near it anymore after a while. And that was sort of what I was experiencing. Fine now.
Well, I certainly had that experience, you know, doing X-Files for 9 seasons.
Ugh.
I had a good couple of mini breakdowns during that, and at the end could not talk about it, could not see it, could not see pictures, needed to, you know, immerse immediately in theater in another country, and then after a while I was able to embrace it again. But when I started to embrace it, it was almost like I was looking at the image as if it was another person. You know, I'd separated myself so much that I was almost looking at the imagery as if it hadn't been me in my life. And I think when you immerse yourself so entirely as we can and we do for such long periods of time, there's not going to be no consequence to that. Of course, there's going to be consequence to that.
There's
for
like
everybody.
the tariff that we all sort of pay for caring as much as we do about the representation of the people that we're playing, whether they are real or not, because some, even when we say, oh, this is not a character that existed, somewhere in the person that you're playing, in the world, someone's going to find themselves in this person. So I think when we pour into these people, when we leave space for them in ourselves, you sort of pay a little bit for it. And I think even if doesn't matter how much washing we do, I think a little piece of them get stuck with us. Even if it becomes sort of faded and small. Some of it feels like moonstone, some of it feels like lapis. So it's like really vivid, or it starts to become translucent, but it's still with you. And you can't help it because you care enough to leave them space.
May I pose a question to the group? Is that okay? Because I'm so curious about this. It's so wonderful hearing the two of you just now talk about that, because I've always felt really crazy for, you know, the depressions that you go into after you leave a character and not being able to necessarily connect with yourself. And I'm really curious to hear what your relationship is with something being seen. Because when I first started working, I convinced myself that filmmaking was a very private practice with a private group of people and that no one was ever going to see it. And then I thought I'd grow out of that, and I haven't. Mm-hmm. For every project, I have to sit myself down probably about 2 months after it's finished and go, people are going to see this and people are going to have access to it whenever they want. And something that was so meaningful to you, something that, you know, you carried with a very select group of people, and that you did sweat, cry, bleed, everything for. How do you guys work with that when it does come out? Because to me, it feels, at least for Queen's Gambit, I had to go through a grieving period. It was like grief, genuinely, to think, oh goodness, this thing that I loved so much is now away. It's not mine anymore. So I'm just curious.
Well, I certainly had that experience after doing Blanche in Streetcar, doing it here in the UK, and then doing it in New York.
I saw this performance. It was a fucking phenomenal
fabulous.
performance.
Fabulous.
I saw like
Yes.
the second to last one
You
too.
were
Yeah.
amazing. I
Yes.
saw your last
Right.
performance in
Really
New York.
Well, I cried after that last. I felt
Good.
like I'd lost my best friend. I felt like I was losing. I was grieving. Some friends of mine in New York had a brunch for me the weekend after, and I arrived. I was going to the airport from there, and I arrived with my suitcases and just like a complete wreck in front of everybody. It was only like 6 or 8 of us or something, but it was so profound. It was so profound because I also knew it was unlikely that I was going to do it again, because I knew that I'd probably lose my mind. I got really close, and I probably would. Like I had survived, and by the skin of my teeth, and that if I did it again out of ego or attachment or not wanting to let her go, that there would be consequences. And so I knew it was the ends, and it was so sad.
Do you know what's so crazy? I listen to you and I'm like, oh my God, that's what was happening during The Color Purple. That's exactly what was happening during The Color Purple. I started grieving before, so it was the last show, and I started grieving in the show. Like knowing that it was coming to an end. It's like this one last song, and I couldn't get through it. And I'm on stage and I'm like fighting to get through, because I know, like, when you get tears and it's like here, it won't let you like move forward. And I was there, and the show ends, and I like buckled under the sadness of it, but there's no way I could have continued playing Celia. Just no way I could have continued playing her on that stage for any longer. It was 14 months and it was enough. I had to let her go. But she was like, the line between me and her had disappeared. It was becoming like, it was hard to let her go, because she was like with me. She was, my friend. And I spent every day with her. It was, however many shows a week, and every morning is to prep for her. Every day you're vocaling for her to make sure her voice is there. And I just was so sad to let her go. And I guess, to answer your question, Anya, when it comes to the relationship with people seeing things, I guess I've never had an issue with people seeing things. I usually have an issue seeing it after it's done. Like, yeah. I want to sort of like, if I can just, okay, it's done. It's easier for me to understand everybody else is going to see it if I don't have any expectations for what I may see.
I was going to say the same thing, because for me, this happened for me when I did the Marcia Clark thing. I remember feeling that the profound connection that I had to her, and the protective feeling I had for her, and also the feeling that she was someone I knew, even though I didn't at that time. I thought this experience has been so sort of tectonic plate shifting for me internally, both as a performer, but as a human being. And I thought, if I watch it, I know how my brain works, and I'm going to pick apart she was left-handed. Every time I use my right hand, I'm gonna be like, God damn it, why did they use, this over worried way where I would dissect something that had been so beautiful for me internally. And I thought the only way to protect myself from this is to detach from what the world will experience with it, if anybody ends up watching it, was to protect what I experienced with. And I knew, certainly at that time, that I was not going to be able to not be permeated by outside opinion and I didn't want to give it away. I didn't want to give that away. And the only way, and I've maintained that for a long time now, and I really don't watch it, because I don't have the strength to, first of all, bear the sight of my face, and also what I'm doing. It's just really like, it's so I find it really confronting on so many levels, but also just the preciousness of the thing you're creating with people, and you're looking into these faces of these other actors, and the intimacy of that. And I want that to be the indelible thing for me, and not how it was edited and the choice that they made. And all it does is make me furious because, you know, if I don't have the power to go in and go, hi, could you choose take 6? It's infinitely better. And when you don't have that ability and you're at the mercy of someone else's opinion of what is the finest work that you've done, which doesn't always line up with what you feel. And it's really jarring and you feel so powerless to do anything about it. And so I have to kind of just sage it all out and just let my experience be the only thing that governs the way I feel about it and not let anything else.
You know, Sarah, I feel like, and Cynthia, I'd like want to piggyback off of what y'all said. I feel like the same exact thing. When the first 2 seasons of Pose came out, I didn't watch any of them for at least about the first 3 months it came out, because I was just so nervous about how the world would receive it. Not to mention, I mean, it was a story that a lot of people haven't gotten to listen to for the longest time. And this was on a platform where a whole bunch of trans women, let alone trans women of color, have finally gotten their shot. Like, I just didn't want the world to perceive us as a certain way. And it's crazy to hear like so many other women saying the same thing. It makes me feel so included, because I was always critical of myself, and it was even more I was even more critical of myself, knowing that I was coming into the position that I was coming in. As you leading ladies know, being in a position like that it's a lot of responsibility. And then also having on top of the story that's filled with trauma, that's filled with a lot of things that a lot of trans women had gone through. It was hard for me to watch all of those things in my mind, seeing it back on a television screen. And not to mention me picking myself apart, like how you said, because it's just something that it happens with to the best of us. But yeah, I just feel like I had to detach myself and just let the work do what it did, and let myself just stand back and let the people perceive it how they perceive it, and just like go on about my daily life, you know, play my Sims until I was ready to watch it, you know? So hopefully that answers the question too. But yeah, I agree with both of you ladies. P.S. Your work is amazing. If you're not watching it, I'm watching it, just to let each and every last one of you know. And it's astounding. So hopefully that
I think so. Gillian touched on this idea of return, sticking with a character for a very long time, and then returning to a character. Elizabeth, this role is one that you have played in smaller forms, and then all of a sudden you get this sort of platform for that. Your career sort of up until this point had been more, I mean, you were this sort of indie darling, and then you signed on to this Marvel universe. I believe at the beginning it wasn't necessarily something that was a sort of not 6 or 9 film commitment, but in success it would be. Were there reservations about that? How did you sort of think about what this could mean for you, and what was the calculation?
Yeah. When I signed on to Marvel, it was just like a couple, and then it kept being a couple, which was to my benefit in multiple ways. One being that they would only use me if it was necessary for the story, so I never felt like they just needed to throw me in because of like a 6 or 9 movie deal or something. And then when I was told about the television show, I was pretty mortified for 2 reasons. New platform, you know, Disney Plus, and then people are used to seeing these characters in larger than life ways, not on your television. And so that was something to wrap my head around. But I think the thing that was lovely about our show is it is a love song to television. And so if Marvel is going to enter the world of television, to do it with so much love and honoring of the history of television at the same time, while working in this character's inner life that I have been making up in my head along the way to feel and to actually flesh it out with, and really explore her own trauma that has led to this surreal space. Was a really clever way of combining, I think, the character and the format. And really, I feel like right now there's so much television, and whether something's a limited series or a series, and to really now think about like why we're doing things in certain formats is something I'm just always now interested in. Why does this need to be a film when it could possibly live better as a limited series? And then how do you take advantage of that format now moving forward? Like we see so many shows do. And I think that's what's really exciting right now about television is how do we take advantage of that format and that structure of storytelling.
Elizabeth, and if I can say, I'm just gonna tag in on what you were saying. I just love the way you portray Wanda. I'm a big comic book fan. I've read about the Scarlet Witch for a very long time, and you depicted her so beautifully in the way and how you made her so real. I thought it was just great for the world to see, so that, you know, a lot of people don't mistake Marvel for just a comic book. There are real stories that are inside of there, and the way they centered you and her story is amazing. Huge comic book fan and a huge fan of you. You did such a beautiful job, sis. Honestly.
I wanted to sort of touch on this idea of sort of career navigation. Anya, you mentioned this idea of you wanted, you know, Queen's Gambit was sort of your thing, and then it really truly became the world's thing on such a sort of global scale. This thing succeeded. How do you think about what's next, and what do you do with that moment? I mean, a lot of you have been through that, have navigated the sort of white hot moment, and I imagine there's some pressure that comes with that. You have things lined up, but how do you think about what you want to do and what you don't want to do?
I've always been very lucky in the sense that I've always followed character, and I think only recently did I start following directors as well, but it was always about, do I feel like I'm the right person to tell the story? Like, do I think I can tell the story correctly? And I mean, if you look at something like Queen's Gambit, that was not supposed to be the white hot show. It's the show about a girl that plays chess for 7 hours. Like, it's not really, it wasn't supposed to be the thing, but I just felt so compelled to tell that story. So I think I just keep following, it sounds cheesy, but my heart. It's like, okay, wait, I take that back. Something that I'm also learning is you give yourself to this person for 3 to 6 months. So I never used to think about this before, but now I do start thinking, am I ready to give up my life for this person? Am I ready to give myself entirely to this situation? Do I need to tell this story so badly that I'm going to do that? And I think that's how I make the decisions. I try not to think about what other people will think about it, because it's your life at the end of the day. And as we all know, you are being that other person every hour of that day. And when you go home, it's difficult to let go of them. So you have to really love them.
I think you're also someone who, you know, a lot of women have looked to. You've stood up for yourself. I mean, I remember reading your book on female empowerment, and I also remember when you were doing the sort of press tour for that, and you know, questions to you about, you know, you spoke up about pay equity on X-Files, and you acknowledged that even you were nervous about that. I guess my question there is, A, what do you think you were scared of? But B, how did that change the conversations when you walked into the room in the years since?
Well, I mean, I just need to point out that when I first fought for pay equity was way back when it was, you know, when it was audacious by anybody's standards, because, you know, I was a nobody when we started to do that series and blah, blah, blah. And so, but where I actually really spoke up about it was when it happened again, you know, what was it, 5 years ago, after, you know, a career that I'd already had post X-Files, after we were going back to do another season, and Fox came to me to offer, I don't know, 1/10 of what my co-star was being offered. And that was the point that I was like, that was the point when I was like, I'm actually going to talk about it in this interview, because you know, and so, I mean, since then it hasn't really, I haven't been in a situation where, you know, I haven't worked with a lot of men, so it hasn't been an issue. No, but I don't know. It just hasn't really come up since that. I'm certainly attuned to it, and were it something that I'd address it. But I'm, you know, I have such huge admiration for anyone who stands up for their right to either be paid or be hired, period, or to, and we're certainly, those conversations are getting more and more transparent, and people are starting to be able to have their voices heard. And so it feels like, if there's a modicum of my having done that early on that inspires people to be braver. But I also say it's not the same. It's not people, because sorry, I don't want to be talking so much. People will say, how do you go into a job interview? And I was like, there's no comparison. They weren't gonna fire me on the X-Files. They weren't gonna fire me. The stakes weren't that high. I put my foot down because this, not because the stakes weren't high, but if they were going to fire me, they were going to, some people were going to have some things to say about that. So it's very different for a young woman going into a situation with a boss who's, overbearing and asking for a pay rise. And I just need to say that.
Yeah, leverage. You had leverage. For the rest of you, when have you spoken up in your careers? Does that come with the sort of, come from a nervous place? Does it, do you not think about it and just who you are? How do you sort of navigate and use your voice in this industry?
Well, I mean, the obvious is I'm a Black woman, and that has a lot to do with how you're paid, how you're hired, if you're hired, the way you're hired, all of those things. It affects everything. And so I am lucky enough to have a team behind me that's brave enough to ask the questions I would like to be asked, to ask what I'm being paid compared to the leading man in the show, or if I'm being paid a lot less, or whether or not they're willing to come up so that it becomes equal. Like, those things are consistently being asked, whether it be what is in little things in my contract that just make it easier to exist on a set. Everything is a bit of a battle. And for me, it's just about having the confidence and I guess like the guts to stick with it and to keep asking and to keep fighting for it. And there are definitely times where you're just like, I'm so exhausted about asking the same thing. I'm so exhausted to like asking if we could please have this makeup artist with me, because usually there are no Black makeup artists on a set, and you're the only one that needs, and it becomes a fight. And I've had to have the fight every single time at this point when I've gone onto a set. I need to hire these two people because they're the only people that understand how to do my face, to do my hair. And it isn't about vanity. It's about making sure that whoever I'm playing is represented in the right way, because they understand how to work with my skin tone and work with my hair and all of those things. But you keep sticking with it, because in the end, when it comes to a situation like that, that's not just me having my way. It's me being able to employ two other people and get them some space. And maybe I'm asking for someone, can we have a DP who understands lighting that works on my skin tone, who also can come in, and now it's those things. It's constantly being okay with having the conversation, having the talk, asking the questions. And there is a little bit of fear, like, am I going to be seen as difficult? And yes, there are sometimes I've definitely heard someone say that they've heard that I was difficult, but usually it's because I've asked like a small question that will make for a better surrounding, for a better show, for a better piece. And I think as long as, if I keep asking the question and other ladies like myself keep asking the question, and then we keep trying to better our spaces, it just becomes the norm. Because I think at some point it has to just become the norm.
Absolutely.
We want to exist equally where we are. That's it.
Period.
I believe it will.
I hope so. Me too.
Elizabeth, I've heard you say something that was said in your house, I believe, which is no is a full sentence. That was a piece of advice that you heard early on and stuck with you. When do you use it?
I use it a lot. I use it. I use it when I don't know, on set. I mean, I want to be a part of every department when I'm on set. I want to be like the AD team. I want to understand the schedule. I want to understand. I mean, I produced a TV show that didn't get too much light of day because it was on Facebook, which whatever, they gave us, a full couple series and fine. But as a producer, it was really important for me, Cynthia, what you're talking about, to be a voice of everything you're saying. And just from having a taste of that for 2 seasons and supporting my fellow actors and have everything on our set from heads of department to just every position be filled, feel like and look like the freaking world. I now am like, I just can't shake that after doing that once. And so when I go back to do Doctor Strange 2 in England, I guess I use it when I just can't shake it, even though it's so much bigger than me. I still can't shake that. I don't know, my opinions are just vast. And everyone hears it from the first AD to the EP. And I have sit-downs with everyone all the time, and I become their favorite person. And I think that I am like a representative of anyone having a hard time on set.
You're the equity rep, man. You're like the equity rep. For real. I love it.
But then, at the other thing is sometimes, I think this is when it comes to like when what do you shake off when you get home? Because I do think I do maybe overstep a bit. I don't know. And then I think that's what's harder for me to shake off sometimes than the actual character, is trying to make sure that the work experience for everyone on set is healthy. I care a lot about that. And so that's usually the thing I'm trying to shake off at the end of the day.
MJ, you just completed Pose. You talked about sort of how significant this show was for you, for the community, for the world at large. How have the opportunities being presented to you on the other end of it changed? Have they changed enough? What do they look like? I know you just took a big role in your next project, but how did those opportunities change?
I would say they've changed due to just the openness of understanding that, trans women have and deserve a space within any kind of space, and that we can hold space as well as be held accountable for the space we hold as well. And even piggybacking off of some of the ladies as far as nervousness, I was very nervous coming into this position. I was very nervous speaking up for myself. And literally at the end of 3rd season, or probably in the middle of 3rd season, I started figuring out my worth as an individual, as a woman. And it's nerve-wracking, it's scary, all of those things that encompass and come together. It's a whirlwind. It's really crazy to see how things pan out. And I didn't even expect to actually book my next job after that. I thought that, being a trans woman in the industry,
the rest of it did.
Works Cynthia, what they do. And see, that's my insecurity. Like, and that's something that I have to fix. But I didn't think that. I didn't think it was possible. I didn't even think before Pose had happened, it was possible to get an opportunity like this and have myself centered in the middle of it. And then to finish the 3rd season and end it off right and cross all the T's and dot all the I's the right way and end off with hope, and then finally get another opportunity with an iconic actress. It was surreal to me. So with my insecurities, yes, I still do think that things need to change, so that can change within me, but in the generation that comes after me, right? Because they're the ones who are gonna be leading the way, especially if they have someone like myself and also the women on here to look up to. So I'm looking towards the sky, and the sky is limitless. And I'm seeing that with the amazing opportunities that are coming my way, but there's also still a lot of work that needs to be done, because if I'm still feeling the need for protection as far as my Blackness, as my Latinaness, as well as my transness, just a whole bunch of intersectionalities in there. If I'm still feeling that, then that means there's obviously something that needs to be done. So I'm on the fence. I'm worried, but I'm also happy and excited, and I'm ready to make sure that I can constantly keep leading as I need to, because there's babies out there that are looking at me, trans and cis.
For the rest of you, do you feel like there's things that are doors still not open to you? Is it changing? Are there parts that you love to play that, for all of you, parts that you love to play, but you're not totally sure the industry is sort of ready to embrace you for that? And again, is that changing?
I would say, yeah, I think it's definitely changing. And I can speak as a testament with not only being able to be allotted another job, but also being able to play something totally different from Blanca, being able to play something totally different that's not as dramatic and as deep as it is. I think, yes, there's a lot that's changing, but I still think there needs to be more work done when it comes to women in general and our space that we hold.
No one's asked me to do a comedy.
No one's asked me to say.
I feel a little frustrated about that because, I spend a lot of time in these worlds where I'm either running or crying or screaming or playing a real person and trying to get their physical it's just, I would really like to just do a nice road picture with me and a couple chicks and just, I don't know, can everybody on it? How about all of us just like in a road movie, like get a Winnebago and let's go? I don't know. That thing where sometimes I really do think the industry makes a decision about what space you're in. I think it has changed a little bit, but you do kind of get put into a lane. And some of it is just, a direct consequence of some of the choices that you've made, where you're moving, as Anya was saying, like from a heart space or a character space, and they all kind of continue to line up and like, wow, I'm really playing some women who've got some dark shit going on. Like, what is this? What is this about? Like, what am I trying to, forage for? Why am I doing that to myself to some degree? Because I do come home at night and it's a little like, I think I need to, because I always think about it like somebody once described an opening night can feel to your body like you've been in a car accident, and your body doesn't know, adrenaline wise, that it was something that you first of all signed up to do. You knew it was coming. And yet your body goes through something really almost traumatic, and yet you sign up for it again and again and again, and you constantly put yourself in these positions, and it's that funny juxtaposition of your mind and your body not really being in sync in that way. And so
I'm 53, Sarah, and I've only really been offered comedy in the last 3 years of my life, and I don't think that's because I'm any funnier than I used to be. I think that a lot of it is that people just couldn't fathom, it just even, whether it was Scully still in their minds or whatever it was. I played a lot of dark characters and a lot of characters that deal with a lot of darkness, and they just weren't coming. And with sex ed, again, as I said, I don't chase things. That wasn't something, but, and it was right in front of me and I passed, which is another thing. I passed when it first came to me because I didn't think that it was right. And it was my partner who kind of, proverbially dug it out of the trash and said, why are you passing on this? But so sometimes when it's staring us in the face, but it's, I hear you.
Do you know, and I guess this is not just even for me, but I'm yet to see a call me by your name for a Black woman. I'm yet to see a piece that allows a woman of color to be sensual and soft and loving and be loved. And I've just not seen it, and I haven't experienced it, and I desperately want to experience that. Desperately, just because I want to be able to be in that space of vulnerability and lilt, and just I really want to do that, and that hasn't come my way. And comedy hasn't come my way either.
Cynthia, I feel the same exact way with you. I feel the same exact way. I'm like, I just want the world to finally, it's been so hard when it comes to trans women being loved and in a very sensual way. And I would love to do something like that, like a 007 movie where you can see the love, but you can also see the badassness and what she can do. I feel you on that one, sis.
Yeah.
Elizabeth and Anya, to Sarah's point, Hollywood, when you have success in something, Hollywood likes to sort of keep you in that lane. what does that look like in your careers? What do you get sort of a lot of, and what do you do to ensure that the range is still there?
I mean, I think I've been saved from a lot of things in my life from pure innocence and naivety, genuinely, because I did, my first movie was called The Witch. I got a script immediately afterwards that was about, you guessed it, a witch. And I was like, why do they want to see me do this again? Like, I don't comprehend this. And so I just immediately was like, can I just not do any more witch movies, please? Because my agent was like, okay, sure, whatever you say. But I do think there's an element of, I wonder how many people agree with me here, but I certainly want to please, and understanding that in order to please, I don't have to give up myself. And actually, it's more important to please myself than it is to please anybody else in that moment when it comes to, okay, I'm giving my heart, my body, my soul, everything to this character. I'm not going to do something because somebody wants me to do it. That doesn't make any sense. And also it makes me miserable. And then I can't do my best work. So if, I was terrified. I never thought I'd do comedy. I wasn't trained for comedy. And doing Emma, which was, our imprint of it was bringing up baby. That was so terrifying. And yet I was like, my only real obligation is to have fun and learn and do the best that I can in this moment in time. And if when it comes out, people are like, oh, we prefer her when she's crying or kidnapped or whatever it is, then it's not really, that's not my job. My job is to do the best that I can with the opportunities that are given to me. And if I feel that the opportunities that are being given to me aren't the right ones, then I have to stick my neck out and go, hey, I think I could maybe do this if you'll give me the opportunity to try.
I think when because I've been working for only 10 years, and I think the first like 6, I learned how to make a decision. I think I was trying so hard to not be put in a box that's what was guiding me making choices. I did know that I didn't want to be an actor who was thought of as youthful and beautiful, and whatever that attachment people like to put onto young women. And so I think I did everything in my power to like not do that. But I didn't really have my own pillars of why I wanted to do things beyond just the character. And that sort of started to solidify, I would say, only in the last like 5 years. But really it's just always down to the script and who's involved, and if the directors kind of new at something, then who are they being propped up by? And that's kind of where I just go from. But I do think I had a big learning curve. I went straight from some like theater school at NYU at the Atlantic, knowing more about Somerset than Sundance. And so I didn't know about film. I didn't know about the machine of it. And I made a lot of odd decisions, I think, because I didn't my brain didn't understand how maybe one makes a decision yet. Right, Sarah? You were there for that time. I thought when Sarah and I were making Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, I was like, I didn't understand. Someone asked me, like, did you know that, you had Sarah Paulson with you, that this could be, a film that people saw? And I was like, well, I don't know, Sundance.
You're like, who's fuck Sarah Paulson?
That wasn't that.
No.
I mean, independent cinema to me was just like going to Quad Cinema in New York and just like seeing a movie. But theater, I understood what was happening in theater at that time. I understood. So I feel like a moron for not going back to theater, like only once in 10 years. And this conversation with Gillian right now is inspiring.
I know.
I was coming back. You mentioned that this idea, this sort of fear of not wanting to be seen as this sort of young, beautiful woman. I'm curious for all of you, if you could sort of complete this sentence. I wish our male counterparts also had too.
I had to deal with like lighting and hair and makeup and this before doing press. I don't know what I'm doing, you know?
Had to deal with people not believing that you've lost your sexuality after the age of 30.
Had to not understand and deal with beauty standards and what comes with that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess had an understanding of what it was like to walk into a room and sometimes have to enforce yourself for people to take you seriously. That ability to just walk into a room and go, I am valid, I own my space, and everybody respects me. That it would be good if they knew what it was like to not have that, I think.
And on the flip side, to not have to like deal with walking into the room and trying to make sure people aren't scared of you when you get there.
Yeah.
Assume the worst when you're standing in the room.
Difficult.
Yeah.
What do you all wish you knew at the beginning of your careers? I mean, to sort of play off what Elizabeth was just saying, what if you could go back and tell your younger self starting out? What would you say?
I actually wouldn't tell her anything. I would tell her to keep going. I would tell, just because I think who I am now, where I am now, is because I had to learn the things I learned back then. And had I told her anything, any number of things might not happen. I might not be where I am. I might not have the confidence to speak up, or I might not have the wherewithal to ask for certain things, or to decide what I want to play, or to decide to say no, even though it might be scary, because I know that this makes room for something that I really want, you know?
Yeah.
That foresight is good. Hindsight is also useful, but knowing the future is something completely different.
It's funny. I think I would have liked to have told myself that I didn't need to excise myself from the experience, that like, or from what I was very, very focused on looking at other actors who had careers that I admired when I was first starting out and wondering what it was about them that made it possible for them to be chosen or employed. And I would often try to, in an audition or whatever, a social setting, sort of mimic what I imagined was the desired effect, sort of taking me out of the scenario in a way. When I think a lot about the way I work now, even though I always feel a little creepy when I say things like the way I work, it just makes me want to like take a shower, but it's really the truth, which is that, you know, sort of to what you were saying before about bringing, what Gillian was saying about bringing yourself to the work and not removing the essence of you from the characters you're playing. Because there's that beautiful Martha Graham to Agnes DeMille letter that I used to keep in a dressing room anytime I was doing a play, about how there's only one you in all of time and space, and that, you know, what you see and how you experience things is unique to you. And if you block it, the world will not have it. And it's not for you to judge, and it's not for you to assess the value of it, but it's your responsibility to put it out in the world. And I think as a young person, I thought, mute myself, mute my opinions, my thoughts, my assessments, and try to fill it with other things. And now I think it's the exact opposite. And I wish I had known that just a little bit earlier, but I'll take knowing it now than never knowing it at all, I guess.
It's worth
I think
anything.
most importantly, like I probably would have told myself, like when I was younger, that my existence is worth it, and that my worth as a woman shouldn't be determined by somebody else, but instead by myself. And that I don't have to fit into the stereotype or this traditional way of how a woman should be. We define our own womanhood as women, not a man, no one. And knowing my worth in a space full of women, strong women, and seeing how we collectively come together. When I was younger, I tried to fit into this mold of what a woman should do, you know, keep your legs crossed, always bow down to a man, you know, all of these ideas of what was traditionally done back in the day. And it's a new day, it's 2021, and we don't have to live in that world anymore. We're now empowered, we're strong, we're centered like how we need to be, and we need to take complete control of that. I would have definitely told my younger self that, because I didn't know that when I was younger.
I mean, I've probably it would have to do with not taking rejection personally. You know, that there is so much rejection in the industry that we are in for various reasons, and that you know, I came to believe and still believe that if, as I said before, that if something is not meant for me, it's not meant for me, it's meant for somebody else, and I'm not to know why, and it doesn't even matter, and it's really none of my business why I wasn't cast. It could be, you know, I don't know what's around the corner. I don't know if I'm going to be needed for a family's health situation, if actually that job will end up being a complete nightmare and I was saved by the bell. I don't know, you know, or whether that was an opportunity for somebody who actually needed, deserved it, whatever, more than I did at that particular time. And so I think I've known a lot of actresses, particularly, who take rejection very, very personally, and it affects their self-worth. But also, you know, so much of women today, you know, of all ages, and especially, you know, since the pandemic, but, you know, the numbers that we're seeing in regards to mental health and self-worth specifically in women and young women. I think so often we don't put enough importance on strengthening that, and that if one is out of work for a period of time and you're a young actress, you know, taking that time to do things that have been known to increase one's self-worth, so that as one gets older and you shore up those experiences, that you can rely on those things to go, well, you know, maybe I'll be a little bit less afraid to take this job or dive into this character or do this thing in real life, because I proved to myself before that I could do it here, and I got through that, and I was okay, and I didn't die. That you know, all of those, it's you know, self-worth is a really big thing, and but particularly for young women in our industry.
Yes.
And so I probably would have told myself to be less self-obsessed, more other, you know, putting my attention to others, being of service, and also really work on loving myself in a different way, which is not self-obsession. It's a different type of self-love.
I think that brings us to the end of the hour. Thank you all for being part of this conversation, sharing your time and your stories.
Thank you.
It has been so amazing to listen to all of you. Honestly, it's lots of
You're all
fun.
fucking incredible is what it is. That's just the long and short of it.
Last one of y'all.
You know what I mean?
It feels like such a gift, doesn't it? I was, you know, I have to say, I was slightly dreading all the press this afternoon, and the tripods and tech that I needed to deal with. And I have to say, this has been such a joy, and I feel very inspired and moved by your honesty, and it's been such a pleasure to meet all of you.
You know what, I know we're supposed to finish, but do you know what's really occurred to me as I've listened to every single one of you? More than anything, and I think this would do us well to remember, we mark spaces in people's lives. I remember where I was when I watched every single one of you. And I remember what I was dealing with, or I remember what I was going through. I was watching you, Sarah, when I was shooting Aretha. I was watching you, Elizabeth, when I was in London and I was on my own. And you, and up in the room at Anya when I was in Atlanta. MJ was watching for ages. And the last time I watched, I was shooting, I remember watching a season of Pose whilst I was shooting The Outsider, and I was like, this is incredible. And I was like on my own in the room by myself. And Gillian, I was in a hotel with my partner in like outside of London somewhere. It's just like, but I remember what was happening. And so your performances aren't just brilliant, your performances sort of get to be like post-its on people's lives. So I thank you.
That's very beautiful. That's a very beautiful way to put it. And it's because sometimes I do think you know, for people who don't really know what it is that we're doing with our, it is an interesting thing to like wear dead people's hair and costumes that are, it's like, it's just, it's an interesting way to spend your, you know, but when you think about this idea of the imprint, and
It also brings us back full circle to what Anya said at the beginning, which is that, oh my God, I have to keep reminding myself that people are going to watch this. But actually, thank God that people are watching this, because we have touched each other's lives and numerous people's lives just by focusing on the thing that we love most. And so it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I would just like to say too, even though I feel like I'm talking too much, is that this thing that often happens, this idea of women being sort of pitted against one another and sort of not really being for one another, and sort of this conversation is diametrically opposed to that idea, in the sense that what we are actually saying is that each of us have been sort of buoyed by and inspired by the work of everyone here, and by countless other performers, and the power and the beauty of that and the importance of it. So I may not watch anything I do, but I sure as hell am watching all of you and trying to steal everything I can and pass it off as my own invention.
But also, the importance of these conversations is the honesty aspect, because I think it's very simple, or not simple, sorry, it's very easy for us to get locked into our own heads of this is an individual experience, there's something wrong with me, or everybody else is doing really great and nobody else grieves their characters, or whatever your version of that is in whatever industry that you're in. Having honest conversations with people that are willing to be vulnerable in that way just makes you feel so much less alone, and it makes everything feel better. So I definitely
Next time you feel that way, and I'll remind you, this is, you know, you have my number. You have my number, girl.
Alrighty.
Bye.
It's amazing.